Hello, my name is Chris Parks, and I'm going to talk to you today about firewalls. I'll begin the presentation by giving a basic definition of what a firewall is. Then I'll touch on the two basic types of firewalls and give some pros and cons of each. And then I'll conclude the presentation by giving an example of when to use each type of firewall. What exactly is a firewall? At its most basic definition, a firewall is a software or hardware-based network security system that allows or denies network traffic according to a set of rules. Firewalls are used to protect networks such as your home network or your organization's network, or devices such as a tablet or your cell phone from attacks and unwanted or untrusted traffic. All network traffic passes through a firewall and is either allowed to pass through or it gets filtered out according to the access control list. These access control lists can be defined by yourself if you're on a home network, a network administrator if you're on an organizational network, or the company that hosts your environment if you're in a cloud environment. There are actually two different types of firewalls. The first type of firewall I'm going to discuss today are hardware firewalls. These type of firewalls can also be referred to as network-based firewalls. This is because they typically are used to protect an entire network or one specific network segment within a larger network. As you can see on the example on the left, this firewall protects our entire home or business network from the internet. This type of firewall is a dedicated hardware appliance. It's not just a piece of software. It's something in the form of a router or a standalone firewall that you can put in the rack in the networking closet and configure as needed. These type of firewalls contain all the hardware and software necessary to protect the network all in one package, whether it's a Cisco ASA or one of the Barracuda devices. It's something that you get out of the box, you put in the rack, you configure it, hook your network up to it, and it should be good to go. Hardware firewalls are much more expensive than other types of firewalls, but they provide the best performance. This is because a firewall is not installed on each individual computer on the network. It's held in front of the network and does all of its resource filtering before it even reaches our computers. So we don't even know it's there, but it's protecting us at all times. Here are some of the advantages and disadvantages of hardware firewalls. Some of the advantages include that it provides protection for the complete network. Since all ISP traffic is filtered through the firewall before it reaches our network, it protects our network entirely. System performance and speed is not affected. Since this device does all the filtering before it reaches our network and before it reaches our PC, the network and the PC performances are not affected by this. Hardware firewalls are not as vulnerable as other types of firewalls. Since it's a single point of entry for all ISP traffic, it filters everything out if it's configured correctly before it even gets a chance to get into our network to do any damage. Some of the disadvantages include they typically are much more expensive than other types of firewalls. Since these are standalone units built purposely for only this task, they're going to be a lot more robust, but they're also going to be a lot more complex than another type of firewall. They can be difficult to configure. These firewalls are very robust in what they do. You can get as granular as you want in the permissions, so they are extremely difficult to configure correctly. Out of the box, it does some basic stuff, but if you want it to be as secure, your network to be as secure as possible, they are very difficult to get to that point. If a hardware firewall fails, the entire network is exposed. This is generally true for any non-redundant networks and for non-redundant firewalls in some of the smaller companies. Some of the larger Fortune 500 companies can avoid this, but for instance, smaller organizations, if they have just this firewall in place and it fails, their whole network is now exposed to traffic from the ISP. The second type of firewall that I will discuss today are software firewalls. Software firewalls can also be referred to as host-based firewalls. As you can see in the image on the left, a software firewall is typically used to protect a single computer or device from malicious threats on the internet. Unlike a hardware-based firewall, software firewalls are installed directly on the computer or device that needs its protection. These types of firewalls are also less expensive than hardware-based firewalls, but they're also a lot less robust. Here are some of the advantages and disadvantages of software firewall. Some of the advantages include even the best rated software firewalls are affordable. You do not have to spend an arm and a leg to get good, reliable protection these days. Some computers actually come pre-configured with a software firewall, such as Windows-based OSs come with Windows Firewall. They're very easy to configure versus hardware firewalls. They also provide protection regardless of where the computer is. Say you go to a Starbucks or the airport, and you're on Wi-Fi or hard connection. It is always with your computer. Some of the disadvantages include they use system resources to operate. Since you have to install the software on your computer, it eats system resources such as memory and CPU so it can run. This software-based firewall, they need to be purchased for every device it's used on, usually on a license basis. So it has to be installed and licensed for each PC that it protects. Software-based firewalls are also not as robust and they do not provide the same level of protection that hardware-based firewalls do. Now that we have discussed both hardware and software-based firewalls, which one is better? I think that really depends on the needs of the organization. For instance, a mom and pop store with one PC will be perfectly fine with a software-based firewall. Windows Firewall, for instance, it's easy to configure and it's very cheap. On the other hand, a Fortune 500 company or a very large company with several hundred PCs will be better off using a hardware-based firewall. To even further that, an institution such as a bank or a hospital may want the dual layer of security of having both a hardware and a software-based firewall to protect its sensitive data. So it really depends on the needs of the organization as to which type is better for them, if not both. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope that you've enjoyed it.